And today we're off to Bethlehem and then to Jerusalem. So we're going to see the birthplace of Jesus, and we'll also see where he was crucified and the tomb where he was laid. And the first couple of scenes you see here is about the varied landscape in Israel. And this is the road we're taking from Tel Aviv to Bethlehem. Coming right up, you'll see a security fence, and that separates Israel from Palestine, and that's where Bethlehem is. First stop here is the Church of the Nativity. You can see the doors are really small, and the reason why they're so low, only 1.2 meters in height, is to prevent animals from coming in the good old days. And this is the entrance to the church. And here we are, the Basilica of the Nativity. Now this one is the Orthodox Church. And as with most Orthodox churches, you'll find a lot of intricate details. Here you'll see all the pillars that were painted over hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and lots of little gold details. Look at all the baubles hanging. I suppose that's where we get the inspiration for Christmas trees. And you'll see this being repeated. Look at all those mosaics on the wall, going back centuries and centuries. And what we'll now see are the grates to the gate that blocks entry to the original place where they thought Jesus was born. They've since built the church on top of it, and so this area is now protected and it's blocked off. Where we're headed now is the Catholic part of the complex, and this is the Church of St. Catherine. There was Mass going on while we were here, but I believe it was in Arabic because I surely couldn't understand anything. And right under the Church of St. Catherine, a whole bunch of different caves and what used to be mangers from 2,000 years ago. So there's some debate on whether or not it could have been here that Jesus was born. And a whole bunch of different altars here in the caves and mangers, some dedicated to the Holy Innocents, one dedicated to St. Joseph, where it is believed that he had a dream to take Mary as his wife. And here's one for St. Jerome that's coming up, and this is a saint that was living in these caves, I believe somewhere in the 14th century. And that's me at the entrance to where Jesus was born, according to the Orthodox tradition. But we had to queue a very long time to get through on the other side. In the meanwhile, this is just the courtyard outside the Church of St. Catherine. Back in the Orthodox part of the church of the Basilica of the Nativity. And I just wanted to show you the crowds. It was really, really crowded. So we had to wait 2 hours before we got to the very spot where Jesus is thought to have been born. And I got to stay in there for a grand total of maybe 15 seconds. And that's a queue. Everybody's just pushing and shoving, just trying to get into that little entrance. Really crowded. And here we are, the very spot where Jesus is thought to have been born. And having been done with Bethlehem, we now make our way back to Jerusalem. Here we are, crossing the border checkpoint. Really easy for tourists. Our first stop in Jerusalem is the Mount of Olives, where you get a brilliant view of the old city of Jerusalem. There it is, with the Dome of the Rock. Mount of Olives is a cemetery, a Jewish cemetery, where all the tombstones face the old city of Jerusalem, the original Temple Mount. And next stop is us here at the old city of Jerusalem. I'm standing by Zion Gate, and the first thing we're going to see is where the Last Supper was held. And so the location for a lot of these events basically date back to traditions that were set out hundreds of years after Jesus had died. So we don't know for sure if this was really the room of the Last Supper, but it certainly was the upper chamber of a building. And if you look at the architecture, it's really quite mixed, because the arches are from the Crusades, and you'll also see wall markings in Arabic that indicate that this was also once a mosque. So it was once a church, it was once a mosque, and of course it's changed every time it was taken over by someone. Just below that is the tomb of King David. Again, this was a sarcophagus that was discovered, but nobody really knows if it was King David on the inside. Our next stop is the Wailing Wall. It's the western wall of the Temple Mount, and this is supposed to be the holiest of holy sites for the Jews. And you'll find in between the crevices of the rock, which are not held together by cement, you'll find little notes scribbled by people who write prayers and offerings and stuff them between the rocks. The western wall is overlooked by the Dome of the Rock, and this is something that was recently gilded in gold by the King of Jordan. But it's such a dominant feature in Jerusalem. Our next stop is the market streets leading up to the Stations of the Cross, Via Dolorosa. It was a really wet day today, so I didn't put a lot of the stations on camera. But this one's the 5th station, and there's a little chapel for Simon of Cyrene. And this is the 6th station. And the 7th station. Now, after the Stations of the Cross, you'll find that the last 4 stations are in the Church of the Holy Sepluchre. Now, this is where Jesus is thought to have died, and it's also where his tomb is meant to have been. So right up there, we'll have a little look at what's believed to be Golgotha. But right in front of us is a stone on the floor where people believe is where he was laid. Before we see Golgotha, we just wanted to quickly look at the tomb. So his tomb is under that. And we'll shortly make our way up there. And here we are at Golgotha, or the Rock of the Skull. It's believed that it was here, at this very spot, that Jesus was crucified. here we have a queue just for the opportunity to look at and to kiss a pane of glass that sits atop the rock that is believed where Jesus died. And after he dies, the next station is laying him in the tomb. But as you can tell, it's just too crowded to be able to go anywhere near the tomb of Jesus. And behind all the ornate parts of the church, you'll find a very simple Catholic chapel, and that's basically the Catholic part of the Church of the Holy Sepluchre, which is incidentally shared by 5 different churches. And of course, no visit to Jerusalem is complete without a quick stopover at a synagogue. And this is where the Jewish people worship. And that's it for Jerusalem, a truly multi-religious experience.